All right, I guess we're gonna be starting. I guess. Why is my microphone so quiet? What's going on? Oh, I think it's because I switched my hub, so I'm gonna have to reconnect all of this so that I get my sound card back. I think this should be better. All right. All right, what are we going to do today? We're going to clean up our mess. I'm going to try to not go into too many tangents. I probably will. But yesterday on stream with Ray, we coded this like film developer UI, which served me well, right? Because I developed a lot of film. It's been going pretty good. Then I looked into the source code, and it did what happens pretty often is like it used a UI paradigm that's not the UI paradigm that Charm Bracelet uses. So it's kind of going against the grain, right? And that's going to be a very interesting um, exercise. Like, how do we refactor, especially Golang stuff? Because it's easy to tell the model to just refactor things, and it will quickly go into, say, an import cycle, try to clean up the import cycle, fail repeatedly on unit tests, start deleting unit tests, start deleting functionality. And so as you refactor, you end up just having a shell that actually doesn't really match what you started with. And this happened to me with my workspace manager also. This happened to me at work where I was refactoring like a big pile of stuff. So I'm going to be each time with this import cycle issue, for example, right? So the question is going to be, can we clean up this film developer application? And can we do so in a manner that is repeatable and can be applied to other Go repositories, for example? And what would be the best is being able to encode it in such a way that the agent can do it on its own. And currently, I actually struggle doing it by myself, right? Like, this is a situation where actually this is hard for me because it is hard for me, and I actually don't care about reading the legacy code, it is hard for me to prompt the right approach as well. So this is going to be an interesting challenge. And I suggest that we start doing this maybe with cursor only. So what you can see here, this is my second attempt, which I haven't looked at. I'm going to close the AMP code, and I'm just going to show you the structure of this application and what this application actually even does, because I'm sure a lot of people weren't present yesterday. So we'll get a sense of what this looks like. Let me remind me where I was actually doing the refactors. It's also like an issue, of course, is keeping track of like where stuff is at, especially as I like creating like 20,000 branches. All right, we're gonna close this as well. What is all this mess? Jesus Christ. Let me close all this stuff. We are going to close this. We're going to close that. This is our film develop UI, which is under film develop TUI. What we had yesterday as well is that I actually had disabled language server support in AMP code, so that might have been a significant contributor in struggling to refactor things. It could also be an accelerant for getting things wrong. So we'll have a look at that. So to remind you what this is all about, so we go to film develop UI, and I'm going to go to this repository, and then if I run it, this is what the application looks like, right? So there's some bugs in the redraw. We'll address that after the refactor. And this is an application that allowed me to select a film type from a database and then the number of roles I want to develop. And you can see that there's, for example, layout issues. And one of the reasons for these layout issues is that it's not following the standard pattern of doing things with Charm Bracelet, and then that causes it to not react to my prompts correctly, and that just basically leads to this mess. So that's where we're at. Let me look at the logs. So start refactoring the app. That's something I did yesterday. And you can see that it's starting to move things around and also committed a binary. I'm just going to revert that, right? Like I'm going to set an experiment. So I have like an experiment bookmark that I use to just snapshot experiments. First refactor attempt, film develop UI. It's actually technically my second refactor attempt, but oh, I should have tagged it, sorry. Film develop UI. How do I delete a branch? Delete a branch in Git. I don't know why this eludes me right now. Yes, this is I think the one that I remembered. All right, so experiment is the branch name we want to delete. And then instead of branch, we're going to make a tag. We're going to push the tags. Actually has a binary in the tag, whatever. And then we're going to reset hard on the head. And we are back now in the state that we started at yesterday, that we ended up at yesterday. And we're going to look at it in cursor. So you have the main of the film. This is the first time I look at it, right? I think so far this is all good. Sets up the logging. Then we have a package with the app. And so this is where it starts to get weird, is we have a model, which is the standard structure. So Charm Bracelet follows like a functional UI paradigm like Elm, for example. So you have a model on each event. The model receives the event, handles it, returns a copy of itself, immutable in quotes, because it often uses pointers to do its work, and you can't rewind either. And you then have a view render thing. And what it did here, however, is instead of having the models nest other models and then render themselves, it has made what is like a whole set of screens. And these screens are the different screens on the, these should actually be models by themselves and also handle their own widgets. And that made the prompting pretty hard. And is not the way to do things. Like you do have a handle input, but that returns like a list of functions to be called in parallel and coroutines. In Go routines, this is not the standard way of doing things. So I think my first attempt to avoid doing import cycles, maybe I should just ask it to make an analysis of what needs to be refactored. So I want to refactor app.go and all other files in this package. Is this the right app.go? Just to be sure. Yeah. First, I need to move the functionality to different sub-packages, but I want to avoid import cycles at all costs. Analyze the code and devise a refactoring strategy. So this might be all it needs to actually have the agent be able to do the refactoring by itself as well. It's just like tell it like, you know, please avoid import cycles and do an analysis first instead of diving straight in, because Sonnet is often like something that dives straight in. And it doesn't seem like AMP code uses thinking or something like that to actually force it to do that. And having one mistake I made, right, when I built this film UI, and is actually not giving it a document on how to architect a Charm Bracelet UI. And so this is also something we might experiment with. Once we clean this up, right, we can go back to the specification here and like this time add a prompt on how to build this with Charm Bracelet and then see if we can one-shot like a nice architecture from the beginning, which would be a great thing to put into an agent MD or something like that, right? So if we look at this plan, so split the monolithic package into a set of one-way dependent subpackages. So that model depends on state, depends on UI, depends on app command. No package ever imports a package to its left. That is fucking weird. Oh no, that makes sense, right? Model, pure domain, zero external depth, film go, tank go, chemical go, roll go, fixer go. So it shouldn't be called model because model has a different name in Charm Bracelet. Calc.go. State application, all right. UI, and then the app. Make data new folders. Move data types and pure functions from models.go into model. I mean, we could try that, right? Do that, but call model types because model is already used by Charm Bracelet as a concept. So I don't know if that's like a good thing, but model is like one of those words that are just very confusing. So if they're confusing, the LLM will confuse them. So it is a bit problematic that Charm Bracelet calls its model model. Because as you can see here, it says like, oh, the model is the data domain. It's not like my core UI abstraction. Oh, wow. Could have been called like widget, you know. But in some manner, I'm not going to name it widget because that will conflict with whatever stuff is called in the Charm Bracelet code base or whatever is in the training corpus. And it will fetch a whole set of other UI libraries that use the name widgets to do other things. So, you know, it's like a pro and con of all of this. I don't know if I should do a single threaded stream where I just like focus on one application, but then we have to like, you know, just like, oh shit, did I? No. Where we just have to wait. And I don't really know what to talk about. I know other streamers like to show like videos or articles or whatever. Oh gosh, this is so boring. And it's Saturday, so I'm actually oddly tired already. I guess I woke up pretty early to do film scanning, which is a pain in the butt. I started a lot of Manus research because I picked out a book at random because I was talking about about over engineering yesterday on Ray's stream, where my take was, you know, engineering and intelligence, or whatever you want to call intelligence, is getting so cheap that over engineering something is, I mean, it's not over engineering if it's something that you can engineer in a reasonable amount of time, right? So because our reach has expanded so much with LLMs, we can over engineer stuff while waiting for the next model to come in. And then if the next model obsoletes our approach, then we just like put it away. Like, you know, it like it didn't actually take that much time to engineer it. And playing with that idea is like you can take a lot of the old engineering, which would take a significant amount of time to adapt to our current problems, you know, so like building a graph database, building an inference engine, building XYZ, like even just integrating a library and making it work in a certain context is a lot of engineering, but that's not true anymore. And I don't think we're exploring that very much. And so I started being like, okay, well, what of old expert system stuff can we leverage today to potentially do interesting research or interesting engineering in the age of LLMs? So one of the things I did, I mean, this is not new in terms of what I do of what I've been exploring, but one of the things that I did is I started making just like some O3 research and like, you know, why did this not work? What were the problems with expert systems back then that caused it to not be a great like AI solution? And I was like, which of these things that failed can we actually just replace with a call to an LLM? Right. So one of the issues with inference back then is that the logic was very rigid. You had to encode things like if the patient has a pain in his left arm and they have like heart arrhythmia, then we should do XYZ. And then someone comes in and they actually don't have pain in the left arm, they have like pain in the left shoulder, then the rule doesn't catch and then you miss these opportunities. And those things were pretty hard, right? But if you ask an LLM, these rules are much fuzzier, and it also has like access to a huge amount of knowledge that previously had to be encoded in these rules like one by one pretty tediously. So that was one of the things that was really hard to do. But a lot of the things around it, like say, how do we store the facts that we know? How do we enter the facts? How do we potentially trigger agents to act on rule results? Those are still valid. Those are still totally valid engineering things. The only thing we changed is that instead of having a logic engine in there, we have an LLM call. Or we could start combining the two, because it's very easy to ask the LLM to please just like run a logic engine and do an LLM call on the result, which, you know, maybe with GPT-5 that will like not be all that useful anymore. But for now, it's actually maybe a good thing to try out, right? And trying it out and getting a prototype going in a couple of hours by delegating it, say, to Manus, that's like something we can totally do. So this is, I mean, I just did this over lunch, but I started being like, you know, build a fuzzy expert system with Python, with Problog, right? Like I stumbled upon, across this. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is like 2015 kind of AI with like Bayesian networks and like fuzzy Prolog and all of that. Why not try it out? I actually don't really want to learn it per se. I just want to get like a little thing to mess with. And also, right, like this could totally be wrong. It could totally not work. And just by knowing that an LLM struggled with implementing it, it's like, okay, well, this is, you know, might take a little bit more time. But if the LLM is able to do something that actually impresses me, I'm like, oh, this is something that is totally be looking worth into, because LLMs apparently did good with it, right? So I asked it to do like a little REST API because I like running things in not in Python. So I asked it to run like tmux. It was I hope that it installed tmux. Did it install tmux? Yeah, it installed it. Then it's splitting that. I'm not sure how good this tmux approach was. I'm just like playing with it lately. And you can kind of, I don't know how useful all of this is here, how good this is. It's scrolling down, it's adding, it has a report, so we can kind of look at the results here. I'm not sure if they work, right? So if we look at the executive summary, front-end development, future enhancements, deployments, the system is production ready, that it kind of always says that, so that's, you know, often it like, it's not true. So this could totally be like not working. It could also totally be right. That's always like something that's a little bit frustrating with Manus, is that it always says that it succeeded, or it will like very sheepishly say like, well, it looks like 3 of the tests, you know, like 3 of the 20 tests were okay and the rest was not. And you're like, okay. But yeah, so I started doing that, right? Like, and I will download it and we'll have a look at it potentially. And if it worked, if it did the right stuff, then like that's a good thing to know. It's like, oh, fuzzy expert systems, I did something, the LLM caught on to it right away. Doesn't mean it will work the second time, but at least it worked one time right out of get-go. That's a really good sign to say this is something it can deal with. Then I said, oh, use Redis and build an AI expert system using Redis as a Blackboard system. So I've been talking about Blackboard systems in the past. There's a whole chapter about them in this book. The cool thing about this book is like it cost me like $9. So a lot of these, it's brand new as well. Like I don't think it was ever opened. So you can get a lot of these books for a very cheap price. And then, I mean, you can also get them on Zlib and then just paste them into ChatGPT, right? But they give you, it's great to look in the past and see how much was already discovered. Also interesting to see like what were people thinking about AI back then is like seeing the exact same discourse that we have today. It's pretty funny because we know that it like all didn't pan out the same way. Where people like, it's going to eliminate the entire workforce. We don't need doctors anymore. Um, and then obviously that didn't happen. So, and then also see, what things didn't pan out, or like when things got reused in a totally different context, for example, which is what often happens with AI research, right? It's like suddenly it becomes something that's just not called AI anymore and just like standard operating software engineering. So here I asked it to do a multi-agent system with a Blackboard system with multiple agents synchronizing over Redis, which is a little idea that I'm playing with lately. Um, and again, I kind of don't know if this all works or not, but I always ask it to be like, capture your logs, look at your logs, capture TMUX sessions, and then tell me if it actually worked and look at it to see if it worked. So this is another one. Agents, right? We have a fact collector, inference engine, result processor. Those are systems that could totally work with LLM agents, right? Then it has like 6 TMUX windows, which is great because then you can see all of that. You can look at the logs and kind of look at the Redis CLI monitor. This all looks pretty. I mean, it always looks good. That's kind of the problem with Manus. So start system, inference engine agent, processing inference request. I mean, this looks, even if it just faked that in some way, this is already kind of interesting because it means we have a whole scaffolding that maybe making it work is pretty easy. I kind of like this view here. Oh, this is great. So also yet another thing where I was like, oh, can you just like prompt the LLM to be like, I want to have like a whole Redis based agent synchronization to share data and to do all of that stuff. And then I asked it like, can you do it with Kubernetes? Can you just like install K3s and then do operator loops to use Kubernetes as a dashboard, right? And so here, these different things, I wonder, how much of this is faked or not. But I asked it like, can you store all of these things as custom resource descriptors in Kubernetes, facts and active agents and all of these things? So, this is like a little bit weird, the fact that it has zeros in it. So very often I'll have something in Manus and I'll be like, meh, it tells me that it succeeded, but not really true. So we can have a look at this AI expert system with Kubernetes Blackboard. And it has an inference request. It has an agent CRD. It has a fact CRD. So this is interesting. We can have a look at, say, the reasoner agent. What does that look like? New reasoner agent, process request, process reasoning query, process general query, process logical implement. And then where is the Kubernetes part of this? Is this going to be in base agent? Does it? Yeah, so it has different results to fake. This looks promising so far. What is the base agent? So the base agent has a Blackboard interface. It has an initialize. It registers the agent, and then it starts and it runs the background base agent loop. The processing loop is checking for tasks, and checking for tasks, it lists the inference requests. And I guess that's not really a K8s operator loop. Doesn't mean it's not like okay as a concept. So we had, however, the Blackboard Go thing. So it's Kubernetes Blackboard has this new Kubernetes Blackboard. It has a create fact where it just like creates a resource. That's pretty good. Get fact, list facts. It will select that. So it polls on its own. It doesn't use the K8s API to listen for events. I don't really remember K8s all that much. Can we use the operator SDK to do, instead of a polling loop, subscribing to K8s API, event driven API? I don't know. But those are the things like you would say. So Vasu is asking, is Manus better than Claude Research? Uh, I haven't used Claude Research very much. I think they're different things. So what Manus does is like it will start a VM for you, and then it will do the code act as a so write code to basically fill out your request. And I found it like pretty useful to just run in full auto and kind of give me a decent report. So it's like Claude Code and even more independent. Um, and I've found it like fairly pleasant to work with. There's a danger here where it's good that we have like a zip file here that I'm gonna download just for kicks. Is there's a danger that in the follow-up request it will start just like destroying the code base because it's not good at refactoring. So it's exactly the issue that I want to observe in Cursor, like refactoring this photo film development application. But I'm showing you like what I do in the background, like the kind of ideas that I fire off, and each of them cost me like $10. So it's not like it's all that cheap, but this allows me to cover like a huge amount of ground of like what's actually possible with these things. Right, and it's totally possible. At the end of the day, I'll have like a fuzzy expert system running on Kubernetes, distributed with a JavaScript and a Golang API, and that's like definitely worth the $60 that I'll have spent on all of it. It's just like a really good framework experimentation, and I have like a bunch of modules here that I do want to integrate into my system. I had it built like a pattern matcher in JavaScript and in Go. The Go one seems really good. The JavaScript one is one of those where it says like 21 out of 40 tests passing. I'm like, this is probably like a cool. Like, yeah, if you understood, like, don't hesitate to ask questions because I know I'm like very distractible and cover like 15,000 different things. But so here, Manus, this is exactly like the danger. If it tells me like 21 out of 40 tests pass, I'm like, this is going to be probably interesting to look at, not worth salvaging necessarily, right? And also not something where I should say like, oh, please try harder. I could try, right? But it's going to be like 10 more bucks. And that is not necessarily what I want to spend them on. All right. So going back to our moving here. So we created a plan, a refactoring plan with O3, and then I used O3 to actually implement it. And I don't know if asking O3 to implement it was all the best idea. I see that it deleted 2 files, so that's going to be interesting, right? So we're going to accept all. I think it has. That was interesting as a leftover. A Cursor is just like a little bit jank overall lately, or maybe in general. So it did create 2 types. It did create the film represents a film type, existing code, begin copied content, starting after package. So I'm not sure how much of this is broken or not. I mean, it seems to compile, right? So what it did here is like it moved all these types into a file called models, and those are like just pure data types, except they also have a render method. So that is weird. Some of them have a render method, some of them have a string method. I think the render method is something we want to extract out to proper bubble T models. So this seems to compile. So we're going to run it. And then if it runs, we're going to commit it, and then we'll do the next step. So let's go, we go into Google Labs, and then we're going to run it. And this still seems to run. It still seems to do all the data. So that's cool, right? So we're just going to commit that. And then tractor is the symbol I use for refactors. Move models and types into their own package. I think I'm going to continue just refactoring with O3 since it seems to be doing decently well. I'm going to turn on the max mode just so that we don't run into context window issues. Like one of the issues that I had yesterday is like I filled the GPT-4.1 context window too far, and it started doing like stupid mistakes that I should have avoided. Cool, Vasu. Like, yeah, Ray is great, and I'm glad that he's streaming with me. Yeah, I hope you get something out of this. I'm basically just going over ideas that I have, and I'm not very organized about them yet. And maybe later today, we'll actually look at another application that I've vibed previously, which is it allows me to download YouTube videos, split them, run them through transcript through Gemini, and then allow me to work on the transcript. So that is one of the applications that I know works, that I had Manus build, and that I want to polish and finish, right? Or like turn into something that is actually really productive. So yeah, I hope you get out of it. Thank you for the kind words. I hope I'll become like a little bit more professional as I go. All right, so this is cool. We refactor the first step. So now I'm just going to do like next, because we're doing the next step. Let's go take a look at that. While we're at it, let's go take a look at that Gemini application. And I don't remember where I put it. I don't remember where I put it. Let me delete this film develop TUI Go PLS because we don't need it anymore. This application you're seeing here is my workspace manager. I did refactor that one and it broke everything. So it compiles, it seems like it works great, and then under the hood, it like just removed a ton of functionality. It doesn't work great anymore. So that was another example where I just had Amcode. I just said, clean this up, and that wasn't a good idea. So that's another thing we could look at. I reverted the version to the one that works. So I wonder if there's like a video segmenter. See, that's the application that I'm talking about. Maybe. No, it's the video analyzer app. This is a version in Python. And then after using the Python version, I had it build one in Go. The thing being that a lot of these LLM resources on the net are in Python, right? The Python has the libraries, Python has like the SDKs. In Go, it's always like a little bit of a struggle finding the right APIs to do, say, like Gemini inference. So I had it build it in Python first. And oh yeah, so this is the Python application. So where's my Go application? Oh, those are both Python. Interesting. I did have a version in Go. Interesting. See, I don't remember. That's like, I call this like spaghetti projects because I don't remember where I put these apps. So I think it's like command app split video. And I don't know if the split video actually has the Gemini functionality. If the Gemini functionality was only in Python. So I think this is, so the video splitter is not the video analyzer. And I don't know if I did the video analyzer. Do I have something about Gemini in here? No. Oh, do I need to do RJR? No. Where's the Gemini stuff? Video segmenter, video analyzer, Suna analysis, video segmenter. So maybe I only built it in Python. And I'm sure I had a Go version of this. So let's go see in here. Video. Stream video segmentation and editing with Gemini API. So this has, I think I disabled the API keys. Let me quickly make sure that they're not active anymore. Google Console Cloud, what is it called? Console Cloud, google.com. Let me go see at my credentials. just to make sure that they're deleted, I am going to delete API key. All right, let me delete the other API key. Then let me create a new one and like cap it. I hope you can cap API keys in here. All right, how do I create a new credential? Create credentials API key for the generative APIs. To prevent unauthorized use, generative AI. We're the 5th today, right? Application restrictions, restrict key, select APIs, generative language API. All right, save. And then, can I cap this? Can I cap the budget of a Google key? Can I cap the budget of a Google Gemini generative language API key? We'll see about that. Let me store it in a safe space. Export Google, no, Gemini API key. All right. And then let me remove that from my clipboard manager. How do I do that? All right. All right, I think we can go back. We'll see what the result gives us and see if we can run the segmenter. But anyway, this is like after we do our film stuff. But you can set budgets that trigger stuff while quotas for the day are effective. Google Cloud doesn't let you say that. Lower the quotas, such as generate content, generate tokens per day. Okay. APIs and services, generative language API. Let's go do that. So we're here, and then we go into something that doesn't exist. So is this hallucinated? Oh, there's an API and services dashboard. And go to projects, click the name of the API you're interested in, click quotas. Generative language APIs. Quotas and system limits. All right, set up quotas. All right, so this is RPMs. And how do we add one? Is there something at the bottom here? No. Click on More Actions button in a row to get started, or click Learn More to view. That's all there is. Request limits per generate content requests per day. To find the quota you want to cap, enter the appropriate properties and values in the filter. Man, this is like such shitty UI. So I saw the filter, it's right there. Properties. Name. Generate content. Free tier input token per day. Input token count limit per minute. Request limit per minute. Generate request limit per day for a project. Generate content, free tier. Oh, I am on the free tier, am I not? All right, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully, I don't show it up on stream. So next step, as you can see, it has like a couple of warnings. What is the step that it did this time? It's like this time it moved the state machine over to the state package, which is good. And then here we end up having two mistakes, which is app state in the state machine is not defined. That's because it is an internal symbol, I'm sure. And it's called app state. So is this the right name? No. But it does have state machine. Okay, so it did like the import request. So this one is the problem. Here's we're going to rename it to app state to make it available from outside, which will then fix that error, right? So this is kind of a interesting thing, which is one thing that I don't like is like the import aliases. I don't like this this change in where did it do it? See in where was it? In app.go or in screens.go, app.go? What was the one that was failing right now? So why is it complaining? Man, I'm already in the weeds now. Where did the models go? Oh, it's in here. Why is it trying to do internal models? Did we didn't have this just now, right? Yeah, this is really weird. Split screens into, so the models work, and then it did package, type aliases. When did it start editing the screens? It didn't edit the screens at all here, did it? When did that happen? See, like this, I am confused because this never existed, and I'm really wondering where it came from. Was that the tab completion that like added it? So yeah, that was confusing. That was weird. Because if I go to state machine, right, it like created these type imports, type aliases to bridge existing code with the new types package. I don't know if that's like a good way to develop things. And here you can see how it like actually might have done the import cycle. So that is interesting. The public, yeah. So this is only the one symbol that it didn't get. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to revert, make sure that when moving internal, like private names used elsewhere, get updated to public as we are introducing new packages. So that's a guideline that is probably useful for all kinds of Go things. And the reason I'm reverting here is basically I want to learn out of my mistakes. I don't want to work linearly where I'm, trying to get to a final state, which is the refactored app. Actually, I think of this every time I do a prompt, it's me running a compiler. And here I got a compiler error at the end, right? It's like, oh, this is a binary that actually is invalid, or in this case, it's source code that is invalid. So I do want to actually go back to my source, fix my source, and then compile again. And here my source in some way is like the prompt that I'm doing. So that's kind of why I like taking, when something goes wrong, actually, instead of like trying to fix it as the next step, or mentally trying to move forward, I'm like, okay, well, this is my engineering now. It's like I do want to know what I need to prompt it so that from the start it doesn't do that mistake, because that will make me become a better prompt engineer. And I keep repeating this, I think, on every stream. This is maybe like, if I distill it down, is like, I am a prompt engineer now, which means that if my prompt didn't work the way I wanted it to, I need to fix my prompt, right? And if I'm not able to really get a prompt that does make it work, then then I need to break my problem down even further. So this is really interesting here, is like, because now it like seems even worse than before. And I don't know if like it uses the linting errors to like kind of loop back on itself. This is so weird, because now it like really messed things up. And I don't know if it has access to the linting errors, right? It's like, fix the linting errors. So we could go back and kind of say, continue fixing until all linting errors and import errors are gone. So here again, I go back, right? I go back and I fix my prompt and I try again. So Ricky, this project is, I am refactoring an application that I built yesterday on stream. So if you go look at Ray Fernando's stream on YouTube, Ray Fernando Elite, like 1337, yesterday we vibe coded an application to do film development, like a command line text UI application, which I think doesn't compile right now, so I can show it because I broke it. And what we're doing is, it was entirely vibe coded, it did its purpose, served its purpose, and today I'm going to clean it up a little bit, because I realized that it wasn't built exactly the way that it should have been built. It uses the framework that's called Charm Bracelet Bubble Tea. And however, it used a different kind of UI pattern to build the UI, which makes it hard to fix things or add new features. And in general, this week, I'm like very interested in the topic of like, when vibe code reaches its limit, what do you do, right? It's like, how do you refactor something that has been bolted on and bolted on and bolted on, and often they exhibit patterns like the same code is present like 3 times, but does slightly varying stuff. So I had this at work where I had like kind of vibe coded a huge functionality piece into different kind of architectures over time, and I really struggled cleaning it up. Because I was trying to just like say, go ahead and refactor. That was like my approach at the moment, is just like try to make as big a step as possible. And that didn't work. And I did this in a smaller scale, which you can look up on my X, the last previous 2 streams or so. I'm tried to refactor like a very smaller application, and I also struggled with that. And the interesting thing is, as I switched back to manual programming, I actually struggled with that as well. And I don't think it's because my skill atrophied all that much. It's just like, it is kind of a tricky problem to refactor something that has been built without too much structure from the start. And now that I have this film develop UI, I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity. It's a very small app. It looks like this time it actually worked better, right? And we can look at the difference that this like, oh, fix the linting before you finish kind of introduced. Just to show you the application so that now that it probably compiles, let's go see where it might be. So Google Labs. And now we can do go run this. So this is what the application looks like, right? Like a pretty simple application that allows me to select my photography film, right? Like I have like an old camera, or like this one's not old, but it does film photography. I had a whole set of roles to develop. And so I can select, the film type. I can select the light rating. I can select how many rolls I want. Then it will compute. And actually it renders better now. So just like refactoring this a little bit already caused it to work better, which is funny. And this time I decided, okay, well, let's do it in Cursor because I want to look at the code. And since I failed 2 or 3 times already, like, no, I failed twice. Refactoring it, this time I'm going to go back in time basically to the pre-agent coding that I was doing, where I was much more document, like step-by-step driven, to first have the model analyze the source code and devise a strategy that avoids doing something that's called import cycles in Go, which are a sure way of really confusing agents. So what I did here is like create a plan to split this up. And then I had to do the first step, which worked great. And then I had to do the second step. And here I'm at my third attempt, right? And the third attempt, the first attempt I added, make sure that, so the first attempt I just typed next. I was just like execute the next step in your plan. Now I had to add, when you're moving, make sure that private names are updated to public names. That's like a Go thing as well. That didn't work. It could have been that it didn't work, just out of sheer miss luck. Like if I was really, what we're going to do, instead of regenerating here and seeing like, oh, how robust is this improvement? Once we are through, I am going to revise my totally initial guidelines, right? I'm going to go back all the way to this. I'm going to add all the things that we learned in this session, and I'm going to try again. So I really do this like, let me undo everything and try to see how much I can bake either into a document or in a prompt, and also maybe just learn by myself, right? So here we can say, as we recompile this time, continue fixing until all linting errors are gone. So here it runs the Go vet, so it does the linting. Then it starts updating the screens, which is interesting. So this is what fixed the join horizontal, so that's funny. Then it vets it again. Interesting. So it actually didn't change any source code. That's why it still works, right? So let me know when you're ready to extract the finite state machine into its own state. So that's why it worked here. It actually didn't do anything. So it really is worth going over these steps. Obviously, I'm doing it with O3. So maybe doing it with Gemini would work better. Maybe doing it with Sonnet would work better. So those, depending on how much time I want to invest, I will go back and try again with like Sonnet. I will go back and try again with Gemini. And you might think that why waste so much time when you can just like, once you have a working solution, go forward. But you don't learn much, right? You don't know if O3 is a better model than Sonnet. It's just like, well, it just happened that once it worked, right? And there's so many different parameters going into all of this that the only way to even in this world of very probabilistic, very vibes-based engineering, you can still build up like some kind of knowledge. And if you compare this, like, not the software engineering that you do on your own as you used to do it, which is like learn a programming language, learn a library, run experiments, write your code, the compiler tells you it doesn't work, then you learn how to architect your project so that you get further. This is more akin to like your whole career is like how do you become a good team player? How do you interact with, you know, toxic colleagues? Like how do you do all of these much fuzzier, much less amenable to experimenting? You can't just like fuck around with your colleague. You don't really know where they're coming from. Maybe they just had a bad day and that's why they wrote bad code, right? Like it's much fuzzier. And here you have the advantage that you can go back in time, right? I can say like if I go back in time to the prompt that I did all at the beginning, it literally is like going back in time. The context at that point is the same context that I had 2 hours ago. Exactly the same, except I'm dealing with these fuzzy entities, which I find fantastic, right? And I think if there's one thing to take away from this is like do this approach of like if something doesn't work, go back, experiment, try to understand why it didn't work, try really hard to understand why it didn't work, make some make some assumptions and then see if they're true. Um, so I haven't tried cursor agents. What I've been using is called mcode, which I think is very similar, right? So Ricky is asking, have you tried cursor agents? They push straight into the repo and can do PRs. I wanted to try them. Um, I don't think I'm going to try today because mcode has been working so well for me that I kind of want to focus on that. But maybe I will, you know, who knows? There's so much going on that I've been like the step from like non-agent to agent was a huge step, obviously, and everybody's going through it. So mcode is Sourcegraph's agent, and it's spelled AMP code. So I'm sorry for my accent. Um, it's called amcode.com, AMP code. It has a VS Code plugin, it has a CLI, and it's basically like Claude Code is like a way to think of it. Um, so the cool thing is you can share threads. So if you want to see the thread that I used to implement this whole application, you can see the whole thread that I used yesterday. I posted it on my X. Like if you go onto X program with AI, um, actually I can show you what this application looks like in real life, right? It's this is kind of this is my film development tank. So you like put chemicals in it and then you put your film, and then here I was using this as a timer. Um, and you know, this is like the Amcode session that I used to prompt it. And you can see it all on Ray's stream yesterday. Like I literally built it on stream as well. And so this is what the application is for ultimately, right? And it served its purpose. Like I could be like, oh, it's totally fine. Like this application works for what it did. Those are the photos that came out. Um, so you know, it did like it did fulfill its purpose. And there was like an interesting thing about how I designed it, like how I did the UI design, which you can look up on the stream. But so now we're taking this application and basically taking it like to the next step. So without further ado, let's have it do the next step, right? This time, however, it knows that there's a so is it possible to contribute to the project? You're like welcome to fork it and take all the source code. It's like I don't think I have the time to actually be like a proper maintainer of anything. You're like welcome to take it and do whatever you want with it. I don't even put my copyright on it because like the model came out up with it. Like it doesn't really feel like my code either. So I don't think I've pushed it yet. I'm happy to push it so that you can follow along. Um, so let me go in here and then we're going to push it to my fork film develop terminal UI. And then if you go to Go Labs, this labs directory is a complete mess, right? Like this is where all my vibe mess goes in, or like the kind of more manual vibes code, because I now have like a second vibes directory sorry, repository that is even more of a mess. Um, but let me send that to you. So the UI is also I've built this like film development timer like 18,000 times already. This is the UI. This is the repository and the directory in which this um, application is in. I don't think it has a README, but you can generate one. um, so that's kind of where we're at. And you know, it's an interesting question in terms of, or it's an interesting thing to discuss. Is like, what is the value of these kinds of projects these days, where literally all I did for it was kind of have the idea for it and then paste a sentence into an agent. Is like, is it valuable for you? How much value do you get out of it? Because probably you adapting it to your needs is going to take longer than create your own. Uh, a starter task on the film project. I mean, ask the AI. I'm kind of serious about that, right? It's like that's something I do quite often as well. It's like if I have a repo that I want to work with that I'm like curious about, I will actually ask the AI like, oh, give me some exercises to get started with this because I don't even know what would be a good task, right? And like no one's there to answer for me. So what I will do is this is annoying with Cursor is that it will switch the model in every chat. Anyway, what I would do is I would say like, oh, I want to get started with, and then, you know, just put in the the sorry, the source code, like a link to the source code here, film develop TUI. Give me some exercises. I am new to Golang. And it sounds like the problem was saying like, oh, the question you just asked me, put into the AI. It sounds like a little bit flippant. It sounds like a little bit like, let me Google that for you. But I think it's actually a really hard skill to practice, right? And I still I've been trying to teach myself that skill of just putting what I want to do instead of asking someone, oh, what could I do to X, to just put it into ChatGPT, or even like ideas that I have myself. I'm like, oh, I really wish I could do this. And then I have to remind myself, like, oh, you could maybe have the LLM help you at least, right? And so the cool thing with using this for learning is any kind of problem that you have that you're curious about, you can learn. Or and not that the AI will teach you everything about it, but it's often for learning, getting started is hard because you know nothing, right? And you don't know which resources are good either. And also, there's a high chance that these resources build upon knowledge that you maybe don't have as well. So you're even more lost because you'll open this introductory guide and you're like, I don't even know what this is. But maybe it turns out that you don't even need to know this. So here you have this feedback loop where you can ask for starter tasks and tailor them to what you know, to what you're struggling with, to something that interests you. And then you get this exercise, and then it's worth turning off autocomplete. So I don't turn off the chat, but I turn off autocomplete when I do these exercises because the autocomplete is way too fast at suggesting solutions, and then I lose the friction that I need to learn something, right? Like I do want to break my brain a little bit because I do want to rewire it. But this is absolutely amazing to be like, oh, look, like you could start adding these features here, right? And then maybe some of them don't make any sense or you don't understand what they are, but like some of them make sense. And it's like, oh yeah, I want to learn Go. All of these are super, super simple exercises to learn the syntax. But you could also be like, oh, let's go back and say, you know, it's I am new to Charm Bracelet, but I am experienced in Golang. And so suddenly you can be like, okay, well, I want a different set of exercises. I'm actually more curious about this part. So that's the second thing to take away. It's just like it's so fun to learn things. And of course, the more you learn about the real hard stuff, the easier it is to prompt the LLM to do the right thing, right? And so I wouldn't necessarily suggest using this repo because it was vibed and it's actually not that great. But you can go in and check out code that you know is has been done carefully with an LLM or not, and then use that to learn. And I do that all the time, right? Like I was showing earlier on the stream, I don't know if you were there already, um, any kind of idea that I have where I don't really know where to start, maybe just want to get a sense of like, is this actually useful? How does it work? I will just put it into Manus and like ask it to make myself a course or a prototype or an example. I do the same with ChatGPT with O3 or like Deep Research. I have an insane amount of deep research things that I print out. So I can show some so that you get an idea of what this looks like. I don't know if I have some on the desk right now. So I think those are mostly papers. Yeah, I think those are papers. Let me see. Those are papers. I'll be right back. I'll show you what that looks like. So this this is what they look like. This is this week. So you can see this is only 1 week. My printer gets a lot of. Oh, I should talk into the microphone. So this is the ChatGPT research that I printed out this week. And then I just bought a drone, for example. So I was curious about like, oh, how does a drone work? So I just like create myself like a ton of books about drones. Um, there's like this kind of stuff, and I'll just say like, oh, I'm an advanced developer. Like, please create a course about programming the DJI mini series. Or I'm curious about like cinematography. So I'll just like, create a guide. One more concrete example is I'm struggling with ZSH with my shell history. It's still like a little bit broken. I was like, okay, well, at this point, I need to start understanding what I'm doing instead of just copy pasting stuff from the internet. So, I just I just created that. So everything is an opportunity to just ask the LLM to learn about it, and I love it. So here, for example, you can use. Suddenly, it has like all kinds of exercises to learn Charm Bracelet, but on this application. So it's really fun to build it. It's not like a hello world kind of boring thing. So let me switch back to the editor. Here it created like a whole set of exercises to learn Charm Bracelet, for example. And of course, if you get stuck, it will help you, right? Like you can search the web, you can do all of these things. So, so it's really kind of nice. All right, so what did it do now? Did it refactor things a little bit better? So it created a state package, which we can go inspect. The state package now has the enum. It has moved all of these things over. It looks like these things still compile. It has deleted the old file. It now has a file called type aliases where all the aliases are, which is also very nice, even though I'm not sure about the type aliases, but I don't know how good of a technique that is, but it runs the linting, which is cool, which it didn't do before, which was like a little bit troublesome. And it updates the aliases further, and then it updated the screens method, and you can see it like created a get application state, which didn't exist before, which takes care of the hidden variable, the problem that we were running into before. So we can see, does this actually still run? Would be an interesting, question. It still seems to run. It still seems to be doing its computations. So what we're going to do is we're just going to commit it, right? going to commit at every point where it like seems to work. So continue refactoring by moving the states code. All right, so remove the old state, removed all of this, removed that. What's the next step? Next logical step, split the massive screens into a dedicated UI package, one file per screen, plus shared styles, then drop the temporary aliases. Yeah, next. So this is interesting, right? But it still required me to be in the loop. And I don't want that. I want to leverage the fact that these agents are getting better and better. And I basically want to have a surefire way of pointing an agent at a big Go code base that was vibed and be reasonably sure that it will refactor it correctly. And that means not just this code base, but other code bases, right? So the prompt, once I am able to go back and like kind of refactor this code base on auto mode, I want this prompt suddenly expanded and use that prompt on other code bases until it works for those code bases. So I mean, it's an expensive, time-consuming process, but that's how you learn these skills. Like, there's no other way to. It's such a new field. It's such a new domain that you have to do this. This very rigorous kind of approach to it because we don't have data on what works. Nobody knows how these things ever work. The tools are changing all the time. There's like so much hype and like the differential of like how people perceive this technology is so wide, and because it is this weird technology where the words you put in kind of come back at you, you are very easily like captured into your own frame of thinking, right? Because your frame of thinking will cause the model to try to respond within your frame of thinking. So you have to find ways to break out of it or to not see in the response what you think you want to see in it. This gets like a little bit philosophical. Like, I don't know if that really made sense right now. But it's really important to kind of validate your assumptions, right? And my assumption is here is like this prompt will refactor the code base. And then, oh, it didn't, right? So I'm like, okay, well, let's try to understand why it didn't. Go back to the first prompt and try again. And because they're probabilistic, I should actually say like, oh, well, this prompt seems to work like 90% of the time, for example. Because here I'm just like, oh, well, this prompt worked once. Which doesn't mean it will work twice. But also you have to trade off, like at some point, how many experiments do you run versus, okay, well, I think this is robust enough based on my gut feeling, and I don't think my gut feeling is deceiving me right now, and I'm going to adjust. Or it could be that tomorrow you have a different problem, but you apply the same technique and it worked. So you're like, okay, well, now I have like 2 instances where it seems to have worked. It's this very weird knowledge, right? It's like the same as like, oh, I know that like formatting my pull request this way worked at my previous company, so we should do it at this company. It's like kind of the same. Well, you can't prove it. And then if you do it and it works, you're still like, oh, was it because of the pull request, or is it just because we're better programmers? You don't know either. So it's this weird, you're a manager and you have to validate your style of management, but you can't like really do it. Here you have the advantage at least that you can go back in time, which is great, right? So what did it do here? So it created a screens package, which it then deleted. Before we start carving, we need to copy, not truncate, the entire screens Go context. My previous step only added a header stub, so I removed that incomplete file. Yeah, bro, just move it with move. Next logical. So I wonder, this is something that happens pretty often, right? It's like alias domain, and then it like had this existing code, and then the apply model of Cursor was not able to do it. So that's a problem with either O3 in Cursor, or it's a problem with Cursor's apply model and I have to prompt around it. And that's why often AMP code is like, for example, easier to prompt, is because they don't run into these kinds of issues all that often. I'm going to do the experiment. I'm just going to try it again with O3 and see if it's able to actually do this screens moving, or if I need to prompt it like, oh, like if you want to move a file, use MV and then edit it to fix it instead of trying to recreate it, right? I don't know how many, like there's been this whole cursor pricing drama. I actually don't even know how much cursor stuff I use. Maybe I should go take a look. Cursor, the AI editor. Am I burning money? We're gonna see. Pro plan, tabs accepted, billing and invoices, upcoming, set spending limit. What did I spend in June? 1258. It's kind of hard to understand what this is all saying. How many requests do I have left? How does this work? Man, they changed that stuff on me because I was like at a $60 per month kind of thing, and that's gone. Just like fucking changed the plan on me without me opt out of new pricing. So how much did I? June. Quantity. Alright, yeah, whatever. So at least I have a limit, so that's good. See, it did the same mistake. Exactly the same mistake. Copied from packagescreen.go. I'm curious if Sonnet does the same mistake. I don't think Sonnet will do the same mistake, but it's basically O3 is expecting the apply model to do the actual file copying, and the apply model and cursor or whatever they're using, like I don't even know, is not doing it. It sees existing code. It says like, well, this is in a new directory. I don't care. There's no existing code. Let me just move that over. And it doesn't realize that it's actually moving the file. So that's kind of interesting, right? And then I'm curious. I think Sonnet is going to go straight to the jugular and do like the final stuff all in one go. And I'm not sure if that's like the best method of doing things either. So we'll see. We'll see where this goes. I don't know where it created that file either. It's creating it in UI. So we're going to see where Sonnet goes. Like that's interesting as well. Everything is interesting. Like it failing is an interesting thing to know. We know now that O3 with the apply model in cursor, when moving files, seems to have a problem. And we can identify, right? Like if we see that pattern again, where we see like, oh, there's a file with that says like dot 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 existing source, that means that it failed moving it, and that might be an O3 thing. And so maybe we should switch to Sonnet for this request. It's very manual, right? Like I don't want it to do that. I want it to be on Rails. So doing it with Sonnet is an interesting thing, but I'll undo it because if I want to run this in one go with O3, I shouldn't have to switch to Sonnet 4 by hand in the middle because I realize it wants to move a file. At least not with the way cursor works, because it's not able to switch models by itself. Otherwise, I could put into the original prompt, if you want to move a file and split it, then use Sonnet 4, otherwise use O3. Like, that's not promptable. It's actually not that hard to build an agent where that would be promptable, right? But it's, in this case, it's not. It was always an impression I had that like doing the plan with O3 and then running it with Sonnet is always like a decent strategy. doing the plan with Sonnet and then having Sonnet executed is like a recipe for like complete garbage. But O3, even though its plans are pretty cryptic, they seem to like keep Sonnet on a leash. Again, just vibes. I can't prove it, but was like something that seems to have some grounding in reality. We can see here as it's creating the additional screens, this stuff goes away. So Sonnet has a pretty good plan overall. Um, I wonder if, this like intermediate prompting that we've done with this here, when you're introducing new packages, continue fixing all linting, make sure that the private names. I wonder if we have to do that for Sonnet. I wonder if we have to just like, those are general Go refactoring guidelines. So we'll have a look at that, right? If we go back, we do our initial plan with O3 and then let Sonnet run, which is the next thing I'm going to try because that seems like an interesting technique. Then maybe we don't need that prompt. Maybe Sonnet will do the exact same weird mistake that O3 did, which can totally happen. Then we'll address that, right? So it finished this last one. One thing I'm curious with Sonnet is like, will it delete the old code? Because that's something I know O3 likes doing, and it's something that Sonnet doesn't like doing. So did it delete the old screens.go? It didn't, right? So now it deleted it. Nice. And then it runs the go vet, which is great. And then now it seems to be running, right? So we're going to do our manual. Whoops. We're going to do a manual check. Still seems to run, right? And then I can start the timer. I can run the timer. I can press next. All of these kinds of things work. So that's good, right? Because now it really did a big step in the refactoring, which is Sparkles, no, further tractor, split screens into individual files. And so that is really interesting. I like the name of the UI folder instead of like screens. And the final step is like, and this is something that Sonnet wouldn't have done, I think, put in the plan that it should remove these temporary aliases that it introduced. So let's go. Or maybe we can just undo all of this, right? And try from the initial plan, run it all with Sonnet and see what happens. I'm actually tempted to do that because at this point I know, okay, this is actually working well. This is like the final step here of like cleaning up app is like kind of trivial, so I don't even need to really do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go all the way back to load all the messages. I'm going to go all the way back to the plan. So here we have our refactoring plan, and then do that. And I'm going to do, because model is already used, and this time I'm going to use Sonnet to do the refactor, right? And I'm going to add one little prompt, make sure things lint okay after each step. So not running it and verifying that it works, just linting and compiling, which should be enough-ish as a guideline, right? So we're going to try that. We're going to revert everything. We do have it in Git, so if we do want to look at it in Git, we can do that. But we now have reverted everything down here. Actually, did it revert all of this? No, it didn't. What the fuck did it do? It actually didn't revert all of this. What we're going to do before we refactored, we're going to check out this. Right? Command apps, film, develop TUI. So now we're back into. Wait, what happened here? It added all of these. And then, how do I return to this state over there to remove all the new files? I'm actually going to remove the entire directory and then check it back out. All right, and so now, yeah, so we're going to do poop rewind to unrefactored state to try again with Sonnet 4. Right, so we're back here. And now we're going to refactor it with Sonnet 4. Continue and revert. We do have our application. I don't know what type aliases is in there. Let me remove that. And now we're going to execute the O3 plan with Sonnet, and then we'll see. Maybe this will go through in one go, right? And then maybe I should try doing this in a background agent because I've never tried background agents. It has a nice to-do list. I don't think it had that before, so that seems to be a Sonnet feature. Obviously, I think Cursor is like pretty set on optimizing things for Sonnet. Seems okay so far, huh? So we're seeing it move things around here. It didn't put them into a PKG thing, which is interesting, but you know, for now we'll go with it. And moving them into a PKG package, that's something you can do by hand in a real IDE that will go much faster. That's things that for LLMs are really hard. Often, just moving files and renaming packages is like dangerous. And in Golang is literally drag dropping 3 folders. So know the tool at hand, right? Like for this refactoring, I think you do need to be involved as a developer quite a bit. Not just because it often goes wrong, but also at this point, taste starts to matter. There's like 25 different ways that are all valid to refactor a code base, but you know, maybe 20 of them you don't like, and the fact that you don't like them makes them bad. Not because they're bad per se, but if you don't like them, then it won't be pleasant for you to work with them. And this is why often you have like conflicts between developers, is that their brains are different, and then some of them like a certain pattern, some of them don't, and then you will try to attach value to the way why yours is better, when at the end of the day it's mostly like, well, your brain seems to better resonate with this approach and this person's brain resonates more with this other approach. You do have to find a compromise. Like you can't easily change your brains and suddenly be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like sometimes it happens, but often it really seems to be like a cognitive substrate kind of thing where people think differently, right? People have different brains. So what is this guy doing? This guy is using a lot of like sub files, which I actually kind of like. It just makes it easier to figure out where a certain thing is when you file complete. I think it helps LLMs as well because they do see from a simple find, you know, from a simple tree repository, which file is there for what, which is, you know, maybe a prompt I should use when vibe coding things entirely. So maybe we can vibe code this film develop UI in a different branch, right? And restart that, but this time giving it the prompt, follow charm bracelet, patterns, using different models, split files into small files. So actually, let's try that. So where is the origin here? Add more compact UI, still not rendering the quantities. Task, film, develop, TUI, go PLS. Add remote ChatGPT. Where is our spec? I'm mostly looking for the spec for the application so we can start from the same point. Sketch, film, develop. So this is this This commit. I'm going to create a new film develop TUI, but this is going to be take two from scratch. And we're going to fork this from Google Labs. We can go into this new workspace. We're going to go into Google Labs. We're going to make command apps film develop TUI, film develop TUI, and then we're going to copy this. We're going to check out. Hold on. Git checkout from this directory, from this commit, command apps film develop TUI, and then the name of the file is this. So we're going to check this out. We do have a single file here. We're going to commit it, say books, add specification for film develop UI, and we're going to call AMP. So Ricky, if you're still there, this is AMP. It looks like Claude Code. It's nothing special as is. And then I'm going to use the exact same prompt that I used yesterday, but I'm going to add 3 additional guidelines to it, right? So this is the prompt that I had yesterday. I'm going to paste it in here. And then I'm going to add split different parts of the app into sub-packages and individual files to avoid a big monster file. Follow bubble T design patterns, which is multiple smaller models with view update. And maybe that's enough, right? Like maybe this will lead to a better application. So this is yet another experiment. I can let this run in parallel, right? Because I use work trees. And in the meantime, we can continue seeing how this thing develops. And to me, this seems to develop like fairly decently so far. We have the app state here. We have the finite state machine here. And then we have here in the UI, it's starting to build like, see, the screens are a little bit weird. It also put multiple screens into the same folder. It has this weird pattern, right? Like where it has render and handle input, but it doesn't match the charm bracelet way of doing things. And that is a little bit annoying, not just because it's just in aesthetic or it doesn't fit my aesthetics, but it mixes something that is different than the training corpus, or at least different from the reference documentation. And so even though this could perfectly work and could perfectly work as a design pattern in the big, because we're doing charm bracelet bubble tea, it might make sense to stick closer to that pattern. Yeah, if I were to give you one maybe interesting idea is like, don't try to reuse my code because it's definitely like a messy repo. This is my like garbage repo. I just put like random shit in it. It really, I don't put any effort into maintaining it or making sure that it works for people who are not me. So what I would suggest maybe is like take this file, sketchfilmdeveloper.ui.md, and basically start to build the same application that I did, just with the spec, right? Like that to me would maybe be the most useful exercise that I can suggest is like, you have the same spec than me, right? It has like all the screen designs here. And you can see my prompt here, right? Where I just said like, oh, like build this. And try to do the same. And then we'll see, like, does the same application come out? Were you able to use whatever tools you have and your knowledge of LLMs to get it to work? Because you've seen it work, right? Like you have the whole process that I used at this one time, which, you know, won't work the second time, but are you able to vibe code the same thing at the end? And what does it look like? And are you able to then refactor it in the same way that I do? Or do you maybe want to put your spin on it? Or do you want to build it in TypeScript? Do you want to build it in like, right? Like this doesn't mention any programming language. Can you build it in JavaScript and make it work the same? totally interesting exercise to do, right? Can you turn that into a web application? Also valuable. And we'll see like, oh, do you need this kind of spec to, does this kind of spec work for a web application? It doesn't need to be a terminal application, right? Like it doesn't really say terminal application anyway. It says it here, but that's it. It says it here, you can delete those. So that's maybe more useful for you to look at, is just like, you know, the code doesn't matter at the end of the day. The code is just like, oh, it's like a compiled version, so I don't have to compile it myself kind of thing. It's obviously a little bit more nuanced than that because it's not probabilistic, but you can think of it as just like a binary that I compiled for you. But you could compile it yourself if you want it, right? This is funny. See, that's a problem with the screens. I don't know. Maybe this is good, but it should use libgloss to do the styles, right? So that's maybe a prompt that we should put in here as well. It's like, what are the guidelines for charm bracelets? Like, well, use libgloss. Obviously, it's more expensive to experiment with M code and redoing the same application each time because it costs you like $8 or so. But also, like, you know, like a significant amount of my income goes back onto training and learning because that's what I like. So to me, it's worth it, right? Like I often pay hundreds of dollars for seminars or courses or just books. So paying $8 for an experiment might be worth it. Or maybe you have a company that pays it for you. All right, I have to take a short break. So I'm going to let you take a look at this and see if when I come back it's finished. But I'm going to be gone for like a couple of minutes. This seems pretty good so far. Like I think this is not bad. I wonder if it's going to be able to delete its old cruft. But we'll see. Oh, it's waiting for my input. So what I can tell it to do, I wonder if it can do that in M code. Is like use tmux. Does that work in M code? Sorry, in Cursor. I don't think it will. But it's something that works really well in M code. So that's maybe something I should have added in my upfront thing here as well. Is if I start making, you know, maybe I should start making a little list of things that are going to be interesting in terms of designing a prompt for bubble tea application, and just make a list of things that were problematic. It's like split the code into smaller files for M code. Use libgloss for styling, borders, etc. Use tmux and VHS for debugging. Right, so mostly tmux, I think at first. Use tmux and VHS using text screenshots for debugging. Follow the bubble tea design model using model XXX view update. And what I'm going to do is like put this into O3 and have it spec it out to match the actual APIs. And I wonder if there's other things we should put in here. Yeah, use the standard bubble tea widget bubbles. Use the key map plus short help, long help, pattern. So those are all things that I learned over time building Charm Bracelet UIs. I will have O3 flesh them out. Well, actually, this is why I never go to the bathroom. ChatGPT, nope, that's not what I want. I want this. I want a set of guidelines to build bubble tea applications. Flesh this out to have proper details. Flesh this out for the new software developer intern joining. All right, I'll be right back. All right, where are we at? All right, so what about the project layout? This is not a worst idea to have like a project layout and make this like a little bit longer. Styling with lip gloss, debugging with Tmux. All right, so VHS. I don't know what Delve headless is. Yeah. Bubble T centers on model update view triplet. Unified key handling, that's pretty good. So this is the other thing that I need to add here is like forward keyboard shortcuts to the relevant model, handle, resize, window, messages recursively. What else do we have in here? Performance, heavy work goes into, yeah, this is great. Battery draws, process them first and call, yeah, this is good. Respect resize events, unit test models. Sure, why not? Run with race and test in a plane term dumb to catch ASCII assumptions early. I don't know how useful that is. But we're going to take that, right? And then we'll edit it a little bit on here. We're going to PKG UI. Just going to rename it after some of my personal taste. Why can't I redo stuff in here? Thin wrapper around bubbles, wrapped on fork, Y split. All right, styling with lip gloss. This is good. So Delve headless that we're going to remove. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's their like weird table editing. Run the app in one pane, Delve Connect, or go test race in it. No. And interact, capture its output. So this is also Charm Bracelet. So the installed version is able to take screenshot xxxtxt or screenshot xxx.ansi, not just PNG. Embrace the bubble tea architecture, prefer official bubbles, unified key handling, satisfy the bubble help key map data, make sure keyboard key messages are forwarded to the right model. Performance and polish checklist, this is good. We don't need that part. Document flows should have a matching VHS. I think that's a little bit too much. TLDR for the intern. Yep. Validate screenshots. Reuse bubbles, key maps. Welcome aboard your terminal users with thank you. And we're going to remove that part. And I think this is actually a very interesting thing to see if that actually also helps, right? So we had the AMP code part here, and this is a separate one. This is a separate workspace that we're working in. So we're working in Film Develop Take Two from scratch. And you can see this is an entirely new application, right? So we're going to commit it. You can see that there's a binary in here. So we're actually going to avoid committing that one. And this has also created a git commit message, which you can look at here. Whoops, that's part of my agent MD. I can just commit it using that. So I can just do this and then it's committed. And now we can test it, right? We can do, what does it look like? You need to run start this time. And this is like a little bit broken. We saw how it was doing the borders manually, not using lip gloss. This is the kind of stuff that happens, right? So we can say like, oh, this is garbage, right? We could either test it. I'm actually not interested in testing that part. I'm just going to restart it from scratch. But I'm going to, maybe in docs, right? Charm bracelet bubble tea guidelines, and I'm going to paste my document that we just created, right? So this was all great and good. We're going to delete this again, right? So we're going to delete, we're just going to revert the head commit, right? Where's my Emacs? So now we're back to where we started. We're going to add the docs charm bracelet. Books. Add documentation for bubble tea guidelines. We're going to call AMP again. We're going to reuse the prompt that we used previously, but we're going to pass it the AMP guidelines, right? So we're going to do this. Actually, do we want these parts? I'm going to try to keep it as minimal as possible. And the only thing I'm going to keep is the directory I want to create it in. The fact that it shouldn't use the Go mod, that's like kind of specific to this repository. And then I'm going to say use docs bubble tea. Use docs. Why does it not finding it? use docs, charm bracelet, bubble tea guidelines. Try it again. I'm not sure I understand your question, Ricky. Do you mind talking about the settings you have, like terminal OS? So I'm running Linux. My terminal is Kitty, and my shell is ZSH, and I'm not someone who spends all that much time configuring that stuff. Like, this kind of works for me. I want to learn a little bit more about Kitty. I do sometimes, and then I'm like, I don't care. So, and the window manager I use is i3. So, um, i3 is something that I've used for like 25 years now or something. I don't know how old it is, but I've used this since forever. It has changed a lot since the version that I used to use it. I actually don't know how it. I have like a couple of keyboard shortcuts that work, and then that's good. One way I often ask it, right? Like, what one way I'll actually interact with i3 is that I'll give the LLM my config, and I'll be like, how do I retile my windows? And then I'm going to be like, okay, well, it's going to tell me which shortcut to use. So, you know, that's one way I interact with all this tooling, is because I don't necessarily learn it all that much. All right, so let's see what Amcode is doing. Now that it's going to have all its bubble tea stuff, it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes, right? Because now it has like really precise guidelines. It has like styles and views. It has like main screen, film selection, role selection. It calls it screen, which is interesting. Like, we'll see if it makes it a bubble tea model. And then we're going to see if that actually is much more effective. And if it is effective, right? Like, if we have this bubble tea guidelines now, well, we kind of solved our problem for bubble tea. And it's something I should have done like a long time ago, because now I've been building more and more bubble tea UIs. So it was time to do that. In terms of the stream, we are at 2 hours. So I think I'm going to let this one finish and look at it. And then I think actually this was quite effective in terms of building it. So see here, this is interesting. It actually doesn't know how to interact with like an interactive application. So continue use tmux to test with capture pane and send keys. We'll see if it's able to do that. I don't think Cursor will be great at it, but who knows? And I think it did a pretty good job. Like, this one, doing the plan in O3 and then giving it to Sonnet was pretty effective. So it's running tmux. I should maybe add tmux to my allowed commands, because it's going to do it over and over. So where do you set that? They changed everything again. Tools and integration, background agents, models, chat. The tmux. Okay. And the cool thing about tmux is that we can actually see it going, right? So we can see this is Cursor interacting with the application, actually, right? Which is quite great. And we can see it resizes correctly, which is great too. This was something that was broken before. And so here you can see, oh, it's capturing it, right? And so it's basically has its own loop now to interact with the application. And so it's basically like controlling a browser remotely, except for terminal UIs. And the only thing you need to tell it is like use tmux, which is amazing. I figured that out like last week. I was like, oh, this is so obvious. It's so obvious that it works. I guess I can add sleep as well to chat. So here you can see it, and it's like, oh, the EI selection doesn't seem to work, right? So I don't know what this test was about. Um, it seemed broken to me. So we'll see. Go run. And then this one is command main.go. Film type 1, 2, 3. And then you can see it's broken here. So we still have some refactoring to do. And now that I have this like nice bubble tea file, you know, like I can say like, oh, refactor it to match these files. But this was a great job. This was a good job. I like it. It's actually removing the entire package file. It's I don't know why the main.go has been removed, but why not? Yeah, for some reason I must have recreated the main.go by clicking on it in cursor. So I was able to delete that as well. And then now it's removing the entire document directory. And so, yeah, that was a good job. That was pretty good. The key being having used O3 to do the plan. So good job. I said I was going to stop, so I'm not going to ask it to do this like final refactor to adapt it to the charm bracelet style, which would allow us to fix new widgets and all of that. See, it's not able to start the thing in the background. This is kind of annoying. And then here it's actually doing the same with the echo queue. So I'm going to say use tmux to test the application, which is weird because it wasn't the guidelines. It did use VHS, which was interesting, right? And here it's doing the exact same kind of name of the session. It's like pretty funny. So you can see it doing like exactly the same stuff that cursor was doing. It's so weird because it has the same exact error with the lip gloss. It didn't do the lip gloss stuff for the borders. I wonder if it's still running. For some reason, the old application is still in there. I wonder if that's what's happening here. How did it start it? Yeah, so use go run to run the app. I think this is running an old version. It could be that I should have deleted the binary and I didn't, something like that. All right, so this guy did a good job. Pretty happy about it. So that was a good lesson learned. If I were super acribic around it, I would, try it once more. We're going to stop there for today. So did it build the binary? Do we need to remove the binary? Yeah. Should maybe add it to git ignore. All right. Tractor refactored the film develop application into subfiles. Pretty good job. Let's amend that. And let's push it. What is Amcode doing? See, I knew it had like the old binary left over. So that kind of stuff is dangerous as well. Because then it will think that the code that it wrote actually does something else than it actually is doing. And that's a good way to destroy your application as well, because it will be like super confused. And so things we had to add here was um, things still needing to be added to the list below. Emphasize the use of tmux. Use go run to compile and run and make sure the correct version is used. Look at problematic borders, cutoff layouts, for example. Use tmux to test proper resizing of the application. So those are a whole set of little things. Excellent. The fixer tracker is working after use. Let me quit the application, update my to-dos. It has finished. So I don't know. Did that work well? Kind of. Film type. And now we can do select. And it only has one selection here. Select EI rating. Okay. And then we're going to choose 2 rolls of 160. Change film. I'm going to use HP5 Plus. It has different. Okay. Yeah, look, this is almost looking better. It has too many borders for my taste, right? It's like a little bit too vertical. I don't think we need these borders around the main application, at least in terms of so remove the borders around the main widgets. Make it yeah. This was good. This time I also had like the language server on, and you can see like this is 43% of the context window of this like M code session. You can run like sub agents to, for example, this would have been like a good one for the sub agent. The padding probably will have to change as well. We'll see. It's probably going to run it as well. Yeah, this was with these bubble tea guidelines, it was like much more on track. I don't know what the structure of the application is, if it has like the proper bubble tea structure. I suppose it is. It didn't use our help setup, but that's because in the specification of the application, it actually has these little things at the bottom. So it kind of ignored that guideline, right? And so here we can see it's actually testing it with no border. So we could actually attach to this test no border and like see what it looks like, right? And we can see like little things starting to happen here that are uglier than before. I think. I'm not sure if they were that ugly before, why there's like a background gray. But so at that point, like this kind of like visual tweaking, it's probably like easier to just do in cursor at that point, where it's like easier to just like do step by step instead of like typing it in, having this thing like do whatever for forever. Well, you actually want to be in the loop anyway, where you like, right? Like at this point, I'm not interested in running something in the background because I do want to be involved and my taste is involved, right? So, all right. So that was a pretty good result, I think, getting a little bit more clarity into what works for refactoring, which, you know, O3 followed by Sonnet is not something that really surprises me. And one way to do it in M code is to say like use the Oracle, which is actually calling out to O3. It's a feature they added like 2 days ago or so, and then let it run. So that's maybe something we'll try out next time. But it's 4:10 p.m. and I have a weekend to enjoy. So thanks for watching. Like it's great to actually have 5 viewers, which is like 10 times more than I ever had, which is great. Like I'm serious. I'm really happy about that. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful. See you next time. Thanks, Ricky.